Welcome back to Pinstripe Pulse. The Yankees go 3-3 on the week against two playoff contending teams. They take a series at home against the Guardians and just lose one at the Trop. We got a lot to talk about today. Hello and welcome back to Pinstripe Pulse. My name is Liam. I'm joined as always by Jake. Jake, how you feeling today?
A lot of things not great typically. Mainly speaking, we had a tough night last night. We lost both of our games in heartbreaking fashion, and thankfully the Yankees won last night, and that felt great. And then we wake up today and we, have an early game with the Rays, and everything's looking great. And then it just went downhill after the sixth inning. So I'm on a bit of a low right now, if I'm being honest. But how are you feeling?
I'm with you there. I mean, I texted you last night. We were thinking about doing an episode this morning, so I had a few things going on this evening. But yeah, I was not in the mood to do any show prep or to get up early. And I was hoping that the Yankees would shift my mood. And I was talking to my mom and to my girlfriend earlier. The Yankees put up 5 runs with Garrett Cole on the mound. That's usually an easy recipe for success. And that's not where we got to today. And it seems like a missed opportunity now. This week was an interesting week. And today was an interesting day, and the series at the Trop, as it seems to be every single time, just has a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff to analyze. And it's a bittersweet way to end a series against one of the best starts to a team of all time that the Rays have had. In MLB history, honestly, I think it was the third best start through 35 games or something like that, 27-6, whatever they began. So we have a lot to go over with this race series. But we have to start on the Guardian series. Before we do, any housekeeping we should take care of?
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, Judge is set to come back tomorrow. I know that was
Yeah.
his IL activation date. Is he all good to come back?
I believe so. I haven't seen anything on Twitter pop up recently, so I'm. It looks like all systems go for him. Sevy is going to be
Oh yeah.
soon, so we have to talk about that and how he has some grievances with the Yankees as well.
I
Um,
Yeah, of all the people who complain of players, I kind of like how Sevy complains, because Sevy's point is basically like, I'm just ready. I want to play. I want to pitch.
yeah,
And I think the Yankees are doing a good job because that's not really up to him necessarily. But I mean, the fact that they're fighting over whether he pitches on Wednesday or Thursday or where that happens means that he's ready for an imminent return. So I like to hear that from Sevy. And for context, I think he had issue with was it a sim game as opposed to being in the minors, or was it where he was pitching?
I believe it. So they had him throw a sim game, and he wanted to go to a minor league assignment so that way he can get on board with the pitch clock again. So that way it's just like back in tempo.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
the
In
Yankees
like a
like,
game
nah.
environment.
Exactly, and they wanted it in an enclosed environment. I don't know if that was because they just wanted to monitor everything so like closely, or it was just because like they wanted to be extra precautious. But that's how it seems like it's trending towards, and he was not happy about it because the gamer in him just wanted to go out there and perform, and he wants to get there as quickly as possible. But I know the Yankees are very careful with that lad of his, especially since it has given him issues in the past. So we just need a healthy Sevy back. I don't want him rushed back and being like 85% of himself. I'd rather him at full 100 so that way you can let him get stretched out properly. Trust his stuff. Know that he's going to be throwing at the same velo that you expect out of him. Full pitch mix going. I think this is ultimately the right move by the Yankees, but it also hurts because now that we're thinking about like Sevy's situation with his contract coming up, this is a walk year. It's unlikely that the Yankees going to like try to re-sign him to a an extension or anything because he hasn't proven that he can stay on the field, and that's an unfortunate thing to say because when he is on the field, he's one of the best pitchers in the game. So it's frustrating in that sense, but we do ultimately need him back, and we've had some good performances from Domingo and a few other guys have stepped up. But when Nestor's struggling, I mean, hopefully that was a whole strep throat scenario where like he was just sick and his body wasn't working with him. the previous couple starts. But we need another dog back in this rotation, even though like the main issue hasn't been the pitching for the Yankees. Having another ace out there just changes the entire demeanor of we're in a position where we can win this game. We're never out of it, you know? So there's a few pitchers that you can say that for the Yankees right now, and having Sevi back would drastically change that equation.
I saw Hoke tweeted that he was arguing with the team about throwing Wednesday or Thursday because Wednesday is a day game, so he'd have to stay the night on Tuesday in Scranton, and he didn't want to stay a night in Scranton. He was gonna uh drive up there or probably take a chopper or plane up, pitch the night, and then after his start, leave the game probably after 4 or 5 innings at 9 p.m. and get back home. Which is pretty funny as someone who spent a little bit of time in Scranton, Pennsylvania, from my time at Binghamton. But yeah, otherwise not any good news on Rodon. It seems like he's out indefinitely still. No positive progress has been made, so we'll get there. I mean, and Bader comes back, which we'll talk plenty about. Bader's impact just this past week. But I think that brings us into the Guardians series. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I want to point out one quick thing about Rodon. This is apparently a chronic back injury, is what the team physicians have found. Um, I've dealt with chronic back injuries now for about 6 to 9 months. And one thing that people seem to overlook is that typically a chronic back injury comes from an acute injury. So people are getting on the Yankees about looking at his physicals and all that. It's like, well, maybe they didn't show up in the physicals because doctors weren't looking for an injury at the time. But if he has any kind of regeneration in his, I don't know where in his spine he's having the issues, but like arthritis and things like that can kind of pop up just out of nowhere, and you don't realize it until you're starting to feel it. So this is probably an issue that stemmed from him having arm issues, and he started to compensate with his back. We've talked about pitchers compensating with different parts of their bodies before. And I think that that's ultimately what's happening right now is he's working through a new chronic injury that was acute for that. I still ultimately think it was a good contract signing. That it's coming right now just because of the plethora of injuries the Yankees have at the moment. But I do feel like this is an injury that is treatable and he should be able to work his way back. I think the cortisone shot will help. So I'm just going to brace myself and expect maybe in early June comeback. But like, I'm not completely putting the emergency flags up right now.
I hope so, and we need it. And I think it's where we jump into the Guardians series because the Yankees kind of played like a Guardians team of recent because the Yankees' strength right now is their relief pitching. The Yankees by far lead Major League Baseball in reliever ERA. And that might come as a surprise as we talk about some of the bullpen management and our performance with some of these lost games down the stretch. But the Yankees have like a 2.3 ERA, whereas the next closest is a mid 2.5. And I think we start aptly at that game one where we've had really poor starting pitching depth, right, with our rotation being Cole, Nestor, Herman, Brito, and Clark. And Herman is kind of that third guy who is a major league talent, right? Brito and Clark, I think we can agree as starting pitchers are very fringe minor league talents, but Domingo Herman is an established MLB starting pitcher, at least in a 4 or 5 in many, if not most rotations. And Herman goes out and has an awesome day on Monday night last week, going 8 1/3 innings, almost throws 90 pitches, shutout ball. What did you think of Herman's outing on Monday?
Best start of his career. Best start of his career by far. Even in that season in 2019 when he had the 18-3 record, like his ERA was still in the fours, and he had a few dominant outings, and his stuff was definitely a little bit more electric at that time. But the way that he commanded every pitch that he was throwing in his arsenal, like you have to give it to him. This was like far and wide the most dominant performance he's had as a full multifaceted starter at the major league level. His fastball was running hard in on righties and like away from slider was going the exact opposite direction. He never looked like he was out of command of the game. He had perfect ring through. He was inducing soft contact. He was getting the strikeouts at the right times. Never felt like he was fighting for 3-2 counts where it was like 8 or 9 pitches in. He was getting that quick. I mean, also this is also a Cleveland team that likes to swing first pitch and jump on pitches early, so that definitely helped out. But play into that strength and play into that team's weakness or whatever they're doing. Like use that to your advantage, and he did that to the fullest degree. And we were, I think, expecting by the 8th inning a complete game. That's just the trend that it was feeling. It felt like he had all the momentum riding. He gives up that single and then quick pull, and that hurt a lot.
So before we get into that famed 9th inning, which was really all of the action of this game, Jose Trevino with the home run, backed up by a DJ RBI hit to get Volpe to score. Actually, no, he got who scored? Oh, Rizzo scored. DJ was hitting in the middle of the lineup. That was the 2 runs early on in the game, and yet Herman went, I think, 4 or 5 consecutive innings, 1, 2, 3. Really, most of the action came in the first, and then he gave out the one out single to Quan, the leadoff hitter, and then it was coming up with 1 out in the 9th. Rosario, J-Ram, Naylor. So I'll ask you, there's 2 different questions here because Aaron Boone made the decision to relieve Herman at 88 pitches with 1 out and 1 on in the 9th to go to Clay Holmes. My first question to you is, what do you think of the decision to take Herman out of the game?
I can make sense of it. I don't think it's a flip a coin situation. I think it would have been better, honestly, if they just took him out at the end of the 8th inning. So that way you have a clean 9th inning for whoever's coming into the game, because there has been, despite the dominance from the bullpen, they've really shown a willingness to go to Clay Holmes in that situation, or in a situation where he's got a clean set and there's no traffic on the bases. So like, I would rather whoever that pitcher's coming in have a fully, it's their inning from the jump. And I understand where he was coming from by leaving him in there. You want the kid to roll. He's having a fantastic outing. But the second you have that hesitance and you decide to take him out, I have issues with who they brought in. I can understand why he did it, but I think that was the wrong pitcher in the wrong context.
You took the words out of my mouth, honestly, because I know an old adage of baseball is, no, Herman is dealing, let him go the full game. And I think if we're dealing with Herman, Nestor, or a healthy Severino or Rodon, 100% agree with you, right? But, you're testing fate going a 4th time through the order with Domingo Herman, who is really a 4-5 pitcher. Awesome that he gives you 8 innings, but, we went over it. I teased it at the beginning of the episode. The Yankees have the best reliever ERA in baseball. And I think he didn't get into significant trouble. He got an out, and then he got a base runner, and then and then Quan got on. He was facing 2, 3, 4. So the Yankees know that it's Straw, Quan, Rosario, J-Ram coming up in the inning. I think the move there was to take Herman out to set up your relief pitching as best as you can to, at the end of the 8th, have a clean 9th. I agree with the decision. Once you put Herman out there, okay, you try to get through Straw. Maybe you like the matchup with Quan and Rosario if you know you don't have to face Jose Ramirez, but because Herman gives up a decent amount of homers. I agree with the decision to take Herman out once that runner got on at that point. But like you said, I don't like who he brought in, and I don't agree with the decision to bring Clay Holmes in. I mean, looking at the Clay Holmes saves this year, when we've gone through and said that Clay Holmes looks really dirty when he's locating, when he's gone 1, 2, 3, when he's had 2 strikeout innings, every single time, including when he didn't come in the 9th, including in the Rays series, which we'll get into, Clay Holmes came in with a clean inning and he got through it clean. And I think Clay Holmes has shown struggles to deal with some of that pressure. And, Boone mentioned it in his post-game presser. A few things were unfortunate with this Clay outing because ultimately Rosario has a little dribbler that's kind of in between, eats up Clay a little bit. gets on first, or would have had a tough play to make with her speedy Rosario at first. Now you have first and second, one out against Ramirez, and it was it J Ram who got the RBI? No, he got on base. Did he work a walk or he got a single and then Naylor had the 2-run single afterwards? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean a few things that were really fortunate. And then they brought in Wandy right after that, and then Wandy walks in the run with the bases loaded. My biggest thing is if Wandy was available to come in, it seems like Wandy is the choice there in tumultuous situations. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. I think that you need to rebuild Clay's confidence a little bit, and that game in the Rays series where he did that with the eighth inning, keep on using him in that role. That's fantastic for him because it gives him a chance to work with a clean slate. And you have other guys that are more accustomed and more equipped to handle a high leverage situation where you have traffic. I mean, Wandy's the perfect example of that. But I think by the time Wandy was in the game, they probably had him do a quick up down, maybe got him out of funk, out of groove. So that way he was rushing to get warmed up when he gets out on the mound. And then he has to, try to scramble together a decent at bat. And he just didn't have the zone for that first batter. And he gives up that walk that ends up costing them the game.
Yeah, and I feel like you give Wandy Rosario, who's a righty, but Wandy plays well against righties, and then you turn J Ram around to his right side, which is his less powerful side. I think that's and then you're dealing with the lefty on lefty with Naylor, in which Wandy can tune into his more favorable um, lefty pitch mix.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where you're dealing from a position of strength. I understand going to Clay, who's a sinker baller, but Wandy also is someone who pounds low in the zone and is throwing sinkers. Like if you're looking to get ground ball outs there, which I mean the Yankees were up 2-0, so you're just looking for a guy to not give up homers and to not walk
Yeah.
runners. And I think Wandy is the choice for that. If you're looking at both keeping the ball down and not giving free bases, that's in theory what Wandy does.
We also have seen a Clay Holmes this season who hasn't been quite as accustomed to the ground ball rate. Like his ground ball rate has diminished significantly since last year. He's allowing more elevation with, balls off the barrel and all that because he's leaving that two seamer up rather than getting that sinking motion. I've been over this a million times. He's getting that running action. And we'll get to today eventually, but he was able to command it today. This game in particular, everything he was leaving up was up and away to the lefties, and Naylor was able to feast on that because you see that running pitch away from the lefty a lot better than you see that sinking bowling ball. So until Clay is fully right in that sense, like that is not the right situation to put him in, and you're setting your team up for failure.
Yep. And ultimately, I do think it was mismanagement that lost us the game, but we can't ignore how poor the bats were. I mean, DJ had a solid week. He had 2 hits, but otherwise we're looking at 4 hits from the rest of the entire team. Only one significant the only extra base hit came on the Trevino homer. And it was kind of emblematic of how the Yankees have been playing. I mean, you score 2 runs, you're not putting yourself in a good situation to win, even off of the Guardians, who are not a power bopping team. Looking at the Yankees schedule, I mean, I even put this on our Instagram. Since from April 15th until the Rays series, so we're going to include the Guardians series, the Yankees played 16 games. Every game in which they scored 3 runs or more, they won. Every game in which they scored 2 runs or fewer, they lost. So the Yankees score 2 runs, you're not, even with a solid pitching staff, which is what they have been, you're not putting yourself in a position to win. So the game was there for the Yankees. It should have been a win, but it's still a lot of volatility. And I think the bats are still the main issue. I think this is the first time we really felt mismanagement coming from the dugout, coming from Boone. And I think that was a bit of a problem this whole week, ultimately.
Yeah, I mean it's been the issue for a minute now. I mean we got some help back this week that we'll talk about later too, but you really start to misjudge and stand when you see this type of just, I don't know, flaccidness out of placidity, whatever, just weak batting. And there's like a bunch of lifelessness in the dugout too. Um, Thankfully they picked it up this series, but they have to be better all in all if they want to compete in this division because it is so cutthroat.
Agreed, and it was a nice transition to what has been our bread and butter all year in game two, the Garrett Cole start. Someone is going to stop a skid. It's Garrett Cole, and this is where the Yankees win this game 4-2. Cole has a solid outing. He goes 6 strong. He gives up 2 in that third inning, a little bit of a rocky third, but the Yankees come and back him up. Volpe hits a homer to right, a little porch job. Fun fact, I was at this game. Anthony Volpe has not hit a major league homer that I haven't seen live. So I don't know if I want to keep that trend going because I only go to 20, 15 to 20 games a year. But yeah, Volpe goes yard. Willie Calhoun goes yard as well. And the Yankees tack on a few runs in the 7th and in the 8th. But Cole's able to shut down the Guardians' bats. They don't have much to offer. It seemed like Cole kind of just big league them. Yankees go Cole to Marinaccio for 2 outs, which, they take out Marinaccio with 2 outs. Then Wandy ends the 7th, starts the 8th, and then Michael King, which I really liked this path at the end, comes in for the 1.2 inning save. What were your impressions of this game on TV? What did you think of that pitching staff or anything overall?
Working at the time, but I was in cage, so I had a big screen right in front of me, so I was able to watch the entire thing. Volpe, best game of his career by far at this point. Just like from all facets, using the opposite field to his advantage, I think it's going to be huge for him moving forward. Because we have seen him pull off quite a bit on certain pitches where he's just clearly trying to pull the ball. If he can continue to stay inside out for a lot of that and kind of, take that Jeter aspect of his game and exacerbate it, I think that will play into him really well. And then I think he had, was it 2 stolen bases this game as well on the same base appearance?
Yep,
Which
2
was
hits,
huge.
2 runs, a homer, 2 stolen bases. Yep.
Yeah, he turned a single into a triple again and then ended up scoring easy. So when you have Volpe operating at that level, at that caliber, you're in for a very nice treat either way. And I think having Harrison Bader back now, those 2 types of players that are very dynamic and have plenty of speed and tools, and like they both have decent amount of pop, having one at the top, one at the bottom of the lineup is going to create all the difference in terms of the athleticism and the way this team moves amongst the bases and just the traffic that they create throughout the game. On the pitching side, Garrett Cole was Garrett Cole. It's not his best outing. It's not his worst outing. Like his subpar outings we'll get to today, but his subpar outings have tended to be still quality outings of 6 innings, two runs. And I'll take that any day of the week from him. And when it comes to the bullpen, it was the perfect formula because you have a bunch of guys that have no heartbeat. Like Ron Marinaccio doesn't have a heartbeat. He does not get overwhelmed or overcome by the moment at all. Who was the bridger before King?
Wandy for 2 outs.
Wandy, another guy that you trust completely. He's locked down when you put him in that situation to succeed. And then you also obviously have Mike King, who is having a low-key great season. And people were very concerned about his elbow. The velo was down a little bit to start the season, but that seems to be ticking up a bit. He did have a traumatic injury, broke his elbow. So it takes a minute to get back into having like the feel for all of your pitches. And the way that he throws across his body can be very traumatic on the body. So it looks like he's fully ill for his repertoire at this point. And I think that, in my opinion, he's the most dynamic, versatile reliever that they have at the moment because he's a closer that can go 9 outs, and that's huge.
Yeah, and back to King real quick. 1.56 ERA on the year. He had a 0.2 win probability added in this game, which goes to show how essential his final 2 innings that he gave were. And like you said, the return of Bader, we talked about how Bader wasn't going to bring all of the offense that we needed. And again, we'll talk a lot more about Bader on this episode. But he came in and he had a hit, just competitive at bats, having him as the 5 right now in this lineup. it just added a bit of fight. Like the Yankees scored 2 runs off of Karinchak, and that was Bader had a nice long at bat before Calhoun ultimately went deep off of Karinchak in that inning. The Yankees 1 through 6, Volpe 2 hits, Glaber 1 hit, Rizzo 2 hits. Glaber's 1 hit was a double. DJ struck out 3 times but had an RBI single, essential late in the game. Bader had the hit, and Willie Calhoun had a hit with a homer. And then even Waldo was able to get a hit, and it was the bottom of the lineup where got from Trevino and Hicks got no RBI, but it was a nice balanced game. The Yankees didn't do too much, but they scored 4 runs. They had Cole. It was a nice pitching path. Got to Karinchak, getting to Karinchak in Class A, or even Eli Morgan back there in the back end for them, is always a recipe that we like for the Guardians. So say a bit of a new life from the Yankees that we hadn't seen in the previous week. We had been a bit downtrodden, coming back from, I think, what was our worst loss of the season to date. On Monday, giving up that 2-0 lead was essential to get this win. All right, and I think that brings us into game 3. And this game 3 was just about the ugliest win that the Yankees could muster. You were there. I mean, let's start off before I even say anything. What were your impressions of this 4-3 victory in extras?
This was a very last minute move for me to go to this game in the first place. The tickets fell into my lap. Thank you for that, for your friend, for being so last minute. Oh, I can't make it. So like it was a perfect opportunity for me to just like jump in. So I ended up going, sat in right field, had a perfect view for every little chaotic moment of this game. So much happened. I think we should start with this game never really felt like it was in hand in the jump. Like I don't know, it never felt like the Yankees were going to win this game, even when they were in the lead. I was so apathetic towards the entire situation. But we saw, was it IKF's first game in left field, and then you had Bader in center field, and
Yep.
You really started to see the inexperience of IKF in a corner outfield position, to the point where that collision that happened between Bader and IKF sent me, like, you heard me just say, oh, come on. I had never seen a collision like that so up close. Well, not playing, but from what I saw, it looked like it was going to be 2 IL stints that we were looking at. And then the Oswald Peraza situation where he's running in the last inning, like it should have never gotten to that point. This game should have been won much earlier than it was. So there was like a lot of messiness, but we ended up pulling it away. So
it was the weirdest game possible. And I'm going to take you through all of the levels of weird going back to this box score. Our pitching path: Clark Schmidt to Ian Hamilton to Jimmy Cordero to Ron Marinaccio to Clay Holmes to Albert Abreu. And like you said, it was ugly from the get-go because Clark gave up 2 runs in the first. And you're just like, okay, here we go. It's a Clark start, and that's going to be it. Past that, Clark was pretty solid. Like he was able to give us, 4 1/3 strong innings. The 2 were earned, and the bullpen came in and did their thing, man. Hamilton, Cordero, Marinaccio, 1.21 and 1.2 innings respectively. All of them have sub 2.4 ERAs. Cordero being the highest of the bunch at a 2.4 or a 2.38 rather. And that gets us all the way into the 9th inning. And we look at a 5th inning where it's Willie Calhoun and Jake Bauers, like our minor league call-up outfielders, hitting homers to tie the game at 2. And that's not who you would chalk up. And you have a left field IKF, and IKF goes from left to center to third. You have Jake Bauers, who's a first baseman, playing right field, starting in right field this game. And then you go into the 9th, which was the problem, and we bring in Clay Holmes again for this 9th. You have IKF and Bader colliding with one another in the 9th. Peraza is able to get on. Was Peraza's injury in the bottom of the 9th on the bases, or was that in the 10th?
It was the bottom of the 9th because he was trying to steal second. And he did steal second successfully, but it was just an act of desperation, essentially. He should have never been in that situation in the first place.
Yep.
Just to go back to the whole bullpen situation, Boone went with the same exact approach as game 1 with Clay Holmes in that spot, and that's just not the right move to make. It's as simple as that. You either go with King, you
With
go with
after Marinaccio got 2 outs in the ninth.
yeah. I mean, Marinaccio was rolling, so there's no reason to like pull him whatsoever. And I don't know if they're just hyper fixated on the analytics, but there is no feel. Was on the same page except for Aaron Boone. Um, so I don't know how much of that is him making that decision, but he's going to catch all the slack for it because it is ultimately him on the field. Whether or not that's fair, like it is what it is. But I'll just say it this way: like we got really lucky with the way this game turned out in the sense that we were able to hold them at a tie. And then we actually did Calhoun drive in the tying run in the ninth inning. Was that it?
That was Calhoun, yeah.
Yeah. So Calhoun showed up and performed. I got to give credit to him. He's on a bit of a roll right now. But at the same time, it's just like, I mean, also I will say the 10th inning was huge. Just the fact that they were able to shut down the Guardians and not give up a run. That's great.
Yeah.
So it
Abreu
felt like
got
once Trevino
yeah.
was coming up with, yeah, it felt like once Trevi was up with an opportunity to score and drive in the winning run, like the game was going to be a Yankees win, but it didn't feel right at the end of the day because you have so much uncertainty with guys getting banged up and like the Peraza situation, the Bader situation, the IKF situation. It was a head scratching victory where like people were like, yeah, we won, but at the same time, at what cost? You know?
And thank God it wasn't worse. I mean, we haven't seen Peraza since that game. It looked like a significant rolled ankle. I mean, he was going into second, kind of stumbled on himself, and then he couldn't decide which way to slide. So he was safe by a mile, so he just stuck his foot in. But because he had to stick his foot in pretty aggressively, he rolled it on himself. We're lucky that Bader came back and was able to perform. And the Yankees made a gutsy call because that was Higgy that was due up in the bottom of the 10th. And there was 1 out with a runner at third. So you think that Hickey would be good for a fly ball. But they bring in Trevino, the contact bat, and that emptied the bench. And it was a decision that worked out, and I appreciated it from the Yankees. But this was definitely a Pyrrhic victory, as they call it. You know, like we won the game, but at what cost? Is this reflective of the play? A lot of poor performance, but I mean, shout out to Willie Calhoun. He went out and he won us a game, and so did our bullpen aside from Clay. So gutsy performance, and I think this is what the Yankees have needed. They've needed guys to step up and win these games because it brings us into our big foes in the East, one of the best teams to start of all time in the Rays in the next series. So took 2 out of 3 from the Guardians. They're a playoff team. I'll take that, no matter how it looks.
Yep. Exactly.
All right, and then we go down to the Trop, playing on the turf, for the best team in the East, the best team in baseball, a team that we usually dread going to play. And the Yankees put up a confusing series. I mean, 3 one-run games. They take the middle one, and they put up some good fight. But it started out with one of the more brutal victories of the year, but probably not even the most brutal. Sorry, one of the more brutal losses of the year, but not even the most brutal loss of this series on Friday. The Yankees fall 5-4 to the Rays on Friday. Brito gets knocked around a bit. The pen saves them, and then Bader comes back. The Yankees had a nice off day on Thursday. Bader was back in the lineup. He hits a 3-run homer to tie it at 4. And then Bowers with the errors in the outfield. I mean, what were your takeaways watching this game?
The fact that it was as close as it was so shocking. I guess I'll start with Johnny Brito is he is what he is at this point. He really lacks that put away pitch. His changeup is beautiful, but the thing is, if you keep on throwing it, it's going to get hit. That would put this team back into offensively. I think that mentality was like the tone was set early in the reach, and that was the first time we had that feeling for a long time. So all in all, I'm like satisfied with the result because I was expecting a blowout in game 1, in every way, shape, or form. but the fact that it was a 1-run game gave me a little bit of hope moving forward.
Yeah, and again, back to the relief pitching. I mean, Burrito, like you said, is what he is, and I think right now that is a AAA pitcher or that is a number 5 pitcher on a developing team, not on a playoff team. And the book is out on him, and this Rays lineup is relentless, and they have really good approaches, and they play guys who can exploit Burrito's weaknesses because they have that level of depth. Burrito gives up 6 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 walk. For the rest of the game, the only earned base runners by Yankees pitchers were from Cordero, who ultimately gave up the run in the 9th inning. And I think it was only the hit to Yandy Diaz who came around on the Bowers error.
Oh,
And that was
yeah, we got to
it's a
talk about
rough
that
earned
real quick.
run. Yeah, I mean, um, but I mean, the bullpen saved. The Yankees had good fight getting back into this game. Could have been a blowout, but the relievers really put us in a position to win. But Bowers makes those 2 errors, and I mean, as any athlete, you have to make those plays. I'm standing here as a lifetime outfielder who also made a shit play recently, so it kind of happens. But I think part of the conversation that you were alluding to is that Jake Bowers is not an outfielder. He's a first baseman playing left field.
That's all it comes down to.
Yeah. And he gets turned around on a ball. It's one of those, you're not used to playing left field. You don't realize how much the ball tails away on you, especially from a left-handed hitter like Wander Franco. So he gets turned around a bit, goes glove side, hits off of him. Now he's dealing with a turf hop going towards the wall away from him. He kicks it away again. And the compounding 2 errors, one with 2 outs to have the runner, even a big guy like Diaz going from first. And then kicking it away to the wall ultimately prevented the relay throw from shooting Diaz down at home plate. And the run, even though he was called out at the plate, I mean, it was overturned rightly on the review and he was safe. But the Yankees once again having a relief outing coming in to bail them out and just not having that depth and putting players in positions where they're not comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see Jake Bowers in a position where he can actually play first base. I'm sure he would thrive, and his bat has played for us so far. Although he did struggle a little bit this series towards the tail end of it. But at the same time, it's just like, what do you expect to happen when you have guys playing in a very tough? That entire stadium is like a circus. Everyone knows that at this point. That field plays very bizarre. I can't imagine what it's like. My ADD ADHD would be going off the fucking walls. So for Bowers to be doing that in his first game in that position in that field is understandable, but it sucks because it's a 95% catch probability. But they still marked it as a hit, which it clearly wasn't. And even with the ball,
Yeah, that's an
won the
error.
series
And
of late
that's an
too.
earned run to Cordero for no
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. If he doesn't, then I think they get him at home plate too, and we're looking at a completely different result in a completely different game. Because the initial, like you saw Bader and Bowers embrace like right after it happened because they called him out at the plate. It still feels like the Yankees at that point have a chance to win this game. But the second that's overturned and the lead goes to the Rays, you can kind of feel all the life diminish really quickly, or just any likelihood of the Yankees making that comeback started to shrink. And they did put up a decent 9th inning, but at the same time, it was too late by that point.
Yeah, it was too late. The Yankees go down 5-4. And this was an opportunity for the Yankees to really sneak a win because I think before the Guardian series, part of our frustration is that the Yankees were losing and they deserved to lose. Every like there was not an ounce of them that deserved to win any of the games that they lost. And to be honest, all of the games they won, they generally deserved to win. Like they had performances that were good enough. And I think here was an opportunity where a talented but struggling team with games out needs to kind of go and get these games. You need to have a few of them because naturally you're going to lose games that you should win, and that happened on Monday against the Guardians. Sometimes you have to win games that you should lose against teams that are better right now. And right now the Rays are better. And last year the Rays went through devastating injuries in their own right. So now they're at full strength. And the Rays found ways to beat the Yankees last year, and the Yankees have to find ways to beat the Rays this year. And I really think it was on the table for that game. Because the Yankees kind of showed the next game even that they had the ability to do that on this Saturday afternoon. Any other takeaways on game one before we jump to game two?
No, I think we covered everything we need to cover.
And game two, this was the good one. This was the 3-2 win. And back to Harrison Bader, man. He did not start this game. The Yankees had a tough lineup, which we spoke about. We spoke about at Baseball Together. Some of that lineup included Jake Bauers in right field, IKF in center, Hicks in left, and Higgy catching, which happened to be the bottom four of the lineup anyways. But shout out to Domingo. He put up a pretty solid performance. I mean, 5 innings pitched, 2 earned runs. Then we go to Wandy, to Marinaccio, to Clay in the 8th inning, which light the lane for Clay there, and then to Hamilton with the save. And what's notable is that Wandy, Clay, and Ian Hamilton all got clean innings in this game. If we're talking about pitching path, but the important thing is that Yandy Diaz with the double in the first inning. Sorry, it was Manny Margot with the double in the first inning. He played the second run. We go down 2-0 quick. You're thinking this is again going to be a blowout, or the Rays are going to jump out to an early lead. But shout out to these Yankees bats for having a top of the 8th inning, down 2 runs against a really good Rays bullpen. Rizzo gets on. DJ hits the double to score Rizzo, and then Glaber gets the third, and then finally Bader comes in and pitch hits for Bauers, and he just has that bloop 2-run single to put the Yankees up 3-2. And it was a level of energy and a level of fight. I mean, also the level of energy from Bader's 3-run homer the day before that we haven't seen or felt with this team all year, it feels like. And Harrison Bader, I mean, his numbers look awesome right now, obviously, but I think a lot of it is the intangible, what he's providing coming back. Just that defensive presence in center, but also offensively, him just being hyped seems to be making a difference in the fight and the resilience of this team.
Well, and he's not swinging and missing. It feels like every time he's swing. Well, he did have an ugly swing and miss in was it game one where the back foot getting hit by the pitch, and then the next pitch he hits a home run. That was the one bad swing I've seen out of him this entire time since his return. His at bats look so complete right now. He's seeing the ball great. It doesn't look like he's rushed up there in the slightest. He's going with pitches. If he gets fisted on one, he just shoots it opposite field, or he brings his hands in and clobbers one, just over the right fielder. Like the way that he's approaching the plate right now, his hand speed, his bat speed looks fantastic. It looks like he's on time with everything. He's going to continue to contribute at this rate. I don't see him slowing down in that sense. Sure, his numbers probably won't look like 350 with 30 home runs by the end of the season, but at the same time, he's at this point proven he has a big enough sample size with the Yankees that the power is not a fluke. He has clearly retooled his swing to the point where he can lift the ball a lot easier. And then just not like, it's not all about launch angle, but he's also lifting with conviction. He's barreling the ball. This is huge to see out of him, because I'm sure this is what frustrated the Cardinals to the point of trading him. They haven't quite seen that untapped potential that he had. And now the Yankees have seemed to have unlocked some. So that's amazing. And then, as you said, the intangibles is what separates him from other outfielders in the league. Not only is he like a great outfielder, like rangy, like Aaron Judge plays a great center field, but when you have Bader out there and for a fact the ball is going to be tracked properly, and for a fact he's going to put himself in the right position to get to a ball that's, got some loft to it or whatever it may be, there's so much stability when he's there. And it's just a matter of keeping him healthy. That's the clear in the good play. Yes, he's injury prone, but when he is on the field, he's an instant impact. And like you have an injured player like him compared to an injured player maybe like Giancarlo Stanton, where like the DH situation, and like his sole purpose out there is just to hit home runs and to hit well and big moments, and it takes a while for him to lead up to that. We didn't see any lead up point or any point for Bader. He went straight into the fire, and just his ability to be a well-rounded baseball player is the difference maker, and it's what this team needed right now.
Yeah, and that's a huge win that the Yankees pick up. I mean, I'm sure the Rays feel like they lost one.
Yeah.
But the Yankees went out and got it, man, and their bullpen showed up. Herman put in a solid performance. But we can't rely on the bullpen to do this game in and game out. It seems we're leaning on them a lot. It's awesome to see them at that level performing like this. But it seems like something, again, like we've spoken about with this team. A lot of things are unsustainable, and we see what happens to when that comes to a tipping point. You have a week like going 2-6, 2-7. And the Yankees had a chance with this win to have a 4-2 week and to win 2 series. But then they get into the game today. And that was a doozy, to say the least. If I told you that Garrett Cole has a 5-run lead going into the bottom of the fifth, how many times out of 10 do you think we win that game?
You better believe I'd be spreading the news every time. Like, it's not even a question.
I would
That's a
lean
win.
10.
That is a W.
Yeah.
That is W.
Yeah. And just to go over for today's game, Yankees lose 8-7, kind of heartbreaking, ugly fashion. And here today, I mean, the bats were alive for the first time convincingly in a long time. Rizzo hits a homer, Bader hits a homer, heck, Hicks had an RBI double. Oswaldo has a sac fly. The Yankees had 11 hits on the day. A lot of those came early. It really looked good. I mean, Bader, we just spoke about Bader. Don't have to say anymore. He hits another home run. He hits a triple late in the game, a pivotal triple at the time where the Yankees were down 7-6, and we'll get into how they got down. And is able to plate that on a sac fly. He's celebrating. He's getting hyped, and I feel that there's good fight in this team. But I think we saw Garrett Cole was dominant through 4 innings. And in the 5th inning, that's where he gives up the homer to Jose Siri, naturally to the 9-hitter. Then there were some shuffles on an error. A second run comes across, but then it all unfolds in the 6th inning. What were your feelings watching Garrett Cole kind of implode in that 6th?
He did have quite a few 2-0, 3-0 counts early on, and I think he even walked a few earlier in the game that kind of had my alarms up a little bit, just because that's very uncharacteristic of him this season. He's been phenomenal when it comes to getting ahead and getting outs early and like putting guys away early. This day just felt more like a 2020 game for him than anything. Even when he was on, it was still like he was just missing certain spots, and the slider was not the same type of bite that we're used to out of him. And when he doesn't have that slider working, it's very difficult for him to put guys away. So when it came to that 6th inning, the slider was flat. His changeup, I think, might have been the only pitch that was really working, but you can tell him he was just physically getting frustrated with himself. He was sweating profusely. Just everything body language wise told me that this was it for him. He wasn't going to be able to withstand the rest of the inning. And I think I texted you. I said, I think Cole's wearing out early today. And little do you know, he gives up 2 home runs. And they were both just middle, and had 0 bite, 0, uptick of velocity, nothing. Like typically he has a little bit extra in the tank later in the game. He didn't even get to that point today. So if I was out there managing, I would have made that quick pull. I know that we talked about it earlier. It's hard to make that decision because he is your ace. He's the one that you trust the most with the pill. But all the signs are pointing towards him declining rapidly too. And I think if you ask him now, he would probably say that's the right decision ultimately, is to pull me. You have to trust your bullpen. We went over this already, the best bullpen in the league. So there are guys that are more than capable of holding the lead right there at 6-2, 6-3, whatever it may have been. I'd say like even after that first home run that he gave up, all right, clean slate, you're good to go. Bring in whoever you need to. Cordero was the one warming up. I think that would have ultimately been the right option because you're still working with a 3-run lead. But instead, you're backed into a wall where you've got a tie game and now you have to work out of it.
Yeah, it was tough today. Garrett Cole had a bit of that attitude that we've been fearful of in his poor starts in the past. The beginning of this year, man, he has been locked in. And it seemed like he thought it and everyone knew it that he was the best player on the field whenever he's on the mound throwing that ball. And he was dominant and the numbers backed it up and his performance backed it up. Today, you could tell once he got into the fifth inning, he was a bit uncomfortable. He wasn't executing. He was sweating a lot. I think the Rays lineup is just a bit more tedious to get through as opposed to other lineups. I mean, the Guardians, bottom of the lineup, you have safety nets because they have guys who just don't put up any offensive threats.
Yeah.
Even in the Twins lineup, you have that. But Garrett Cole was facing good lineups generally. This Rays lineup, a team he's seen many, many times between the Yankees in the recent years and also when he was with the Astros. Um, a lot of bats that are very familiar with him playing in the Trop, which is one of the most uncomfortable environments for pitchers, for all players of any sense. And we know that Garrett Cole has been a bit more resilient in terms of his comfort of recent, not being as picky in his routine. But I think the Rays bats between having grinding out at bats, and him feeling uncomfortable, he just didn't have it today. I kind of, in retrospect, you probably should take him out. But looking at that, do I make that decision to take him out for Bentoncourt, who took him for the 3-run homer? I don't know that I do, because in theory, you think that Garrett Cole is your best option, and you have a 3-run lead, and you're not expecting him to just hang a first pitch slider, which that was a hanger of all hangers. Like that was just a slider that
Middle.
spun with nowhere to spin to.
That was my biggest concern too. Is like I saw that coming. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could feel it coming, but like you have that confidence in Cole. In retrospect, all of the signs were there, and everything that pointed to his previous poor performances in prior years. It was all of the steps to that, but you were thinking that this is a different year for Garrett Cole. But I think we have to get out of the Garrett Cole 1 ERA train because that's just not a sustainable performance model for anybody over the course of a year, anyways. So he'll have these. It's okay, but it's heartbreaking because the bats came alive, and you would think Garrett Cole would walk you to a victory, and that's not what happened.
I will say too, Jimmy Cordero, like, what are you doing when it comes to not checking the runner at third base or at second base, even? Like, that's the easiest bag I've ever seen.
It was crazy. I mean, respect to Siri, he plays really fast and really hard. But I mean, you have to know, one, you hear that the guy is stealing. In theory, I assume the Yankees, and you're in a dome, so like you can hear one another. Once the guy is stealing, you have that chopper, you have to check. I imagine Trevi's talking there and Cordero just didn't know what to do. But Waldo and Trevi and the bench, everyone has to be saying, hey, check the runner. Cordero has
Yeah.
to make an urgent flip there and DJ come a firing, or he has to hold it and just series taking a hard round around third, and just a head check gets him in a pickle. And if you get the rundown, give up the base runner at first. It doesn't matter.
Like all they needed, and I firmly believe this, if you simply look over towards the third baseline, any kind of head movement, you get an easy out. And rather than having the Rays say that was a heads up base running play, that turns into a stupid base running play, like real quick, and that changes the entire trajectory of the rest of the game. Because they did make up the ground where they were down 7-6, and then they tie it up immediately 7-7. Rather than that tying run, that's a winning run right there, or go ahead run. And then you get into your Mike King situation where he can shine in the ninth inning. So it really sucks that that's the way that they blew that lead altogether to the point where they face a deficit. I like Jimmy Cordero, but you have to be more heads up, especially when you're playing in a playoff environment. So That's my big hesitation with him. I like his stuff a lot. I want to keep on reiterating. I thought he was a great low key pickup this year, but you have to have better situational awareness if you're going to play for the Yankees.
And it's not an anomaly that the Rays do this. The Rays are known to be the most aggressive base running team in all of baseball, even more so than the Guardians. So you go in as a pitcher, you have to know that's not just them stealing from first to second as a righty pitcher. That is them taking third. That is secondary leads. That's in between pitches with the clock, timing you up, looking at your mannerisms, taking extra bases in the outfield and the infield. And I don't know, the Yankees are in Tampa. You'd think they had some memory of spring training PFPs, but they walked out of the situation, and that's what makes it more brutal. You know, you can deal with getting beat. The Rays are a very good team, and they got to Cole today, and they beat our best with the bats. But our bats came in and they were resilient. They put up a good performance. They came back and they got another run. And we gave up the game on mental errors. Like our number one got beat, and then we had a mental error, and it's just a culmination of a game that we definitely should have won. That I write down as a win, 9.5 out of 10 times. And we just couldn't come away with it, and the Rays deserved to win because the Yankees shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah. I had something to say and I just like lost it completely. Yeah, I don't
Can
know.
we talk about the base running?
Yes, please. Let's get to that. Third base.
Oh my God. I need to, if anyone knows someone who works in the Yankees analytics team, I need to know the statistical evidence that you have about the base running philosophy of just running with less than 2 outs and a runner at third. Like I need to know what the data is mined from, what were the situations, what it accounted for, because I don't understand how you can have twice in a week an infield in hard hit ground ball right at a position player, and you just send the runner at third to be thrown out by 5 steps.
Yeah.
That happened in the extra inning win, and it happened today where we had a runner at third, and great job by Hicks. One, oh, great game by Hicks, by the way.
That's
His
what I was going to bring up. Yeah.
but yeah, but first, great job by Hicks to get into a rundown enough that also a great job by Glaber, that Glaber, the hitter, gets the third on a rundown. So Glaber was running hard. That's an awesome job. That's fight we haven't seen from the Yankees. That's not intuition or effort that we've seen from Hicks this year. And it's awesome that he hits the double and comes through in a big way today. And he does that because that's very aware baseball. So ultimately, it was the same scenario, but it's like embarrassing that you have a 1 out hit, like a 1 out situation where in theory, and also no, they do it on no outs as well. So no outs and 1 out, where in theory you have 2 hard hit balls where if it hits anything except for a grounder or a line drive right at the chest of the fielder, that it's a run. Like I understand your first instinct going home, but the third baseman's off the line. I don't know. I don't see how just sending the runner is that more opportunistic over a slight hesitation to see where it goes. Like the runners can see where the ball goes. You can tell when it goes right to a player. I know that hesitation, that momentum step is really important marginally, but I don't know. I need to see what that data is factoring because it feels simplistic and incomplete. Like you're just sending a guy on MLB The Show, like you're hitting the button.
And it's a premeditated move for sure. It's not the players coming up with it. Like you would see pushback immediately, like little dialogues going on the side if it was a case where someone just stupidly went on their own. And, let's say the third base coach or whoever it is has a word with them in the dugout afterwards, they would definitely pan over with the camera. That's not the case. This is all premeditated. They're all, having the same philosophy taught to them. So I have the same exact questions, like what is the reasoning behind it? But I was going to say this is the first game where Aaron Hicks and his -5 OPS plus was not an issue whatsoever. He was actually a positive. He was a net positive this game. And credit to him, his at-bats look significantly better. Did I think he was going to be a -5 OPS plus guy forever? No. But do I think he should still ultimately be DFA'd? Yes. However, this is the like glimpse of a decent player that we've kind of just wanted to see out of him for a long time. And I think he needed this just from a moral standpoint of like having that mental victory of getting over the hump. Like he didn't have an extra base hit up until this game. That's wild. He went how many plate appearances without one? 225 days, something like that. That's crazy. So it was good to see
It's
that
over
he would,
35 games.
yeah, I mean, like just like he needed something to instill a little bit of energy in him. And I think the Harrison Bader thing, like having him back out there, is just a positive influence on everyone surrounding him. Just like it's just an immediate energy jolt because that's Bader's personality. And I think it rubbed off on Hicks today. I think we're seeing a full collateral positive coming out of that. And is Hicks going to start? Is he going to be on this roster when Judge is back? That's something that is yet to be decided. But it's an interesting conversation because Judge will be back probably tomorrow, and someone's probably going to have to go down. So who is that going to be? I don't want to send Bowers down necessarily because I still think his bat is overall an asset. But if you're looking at the overall body of work, there are two guys that have severely underperformed this year, and that's IKF and Hicks. And Hicks has been significantly than IKF. But if this is Hicks's final game as a Yankee, like that's a way to go out that I think everyone can at least hang their hat on and be like, that was something to walk away with feeling like a little bit of pride still.
Yeah, and if this is what Hicks needs to get going, is just having an extra base hit in a rivalry game, like a team that he has hated back to when he was teammates with CC and he was like a leader of this team in 2018, 2019. I'll take it, man. I mean, Bader brings that fire, and if Hicks can get that within himself and he can feel like he adds a little bit of value, his biggest thing has been, what's my role on this team? Well, frankly, I don't think you have one because you haven't been performing. But if you can be a pinch hit, switch hit bat, like especially against the Rays, like I think Aaron Boone was faced with a few tough decisions on whether or not to pinch hit Hicks today, because Calhoun is a power lefty bat that also has been giving great contact too. But knowing how the Rays operate, the moment you pinch hit Hicks, they're going to bring in a lefty to neutralize Calhoun. So Hicks has that value being a switch hitter as long as he's not a wet noodle at the plate. Especially if he's going to be able to hit from the right side, he can be productive. And, if that gets him going, by all means, if he's going to be on this team until his 10-5 rights, until the All-Star break or the trade deadline, however that happens, I mean, I'm going to root for him. I mean, literally today, right before his double, I was talking to my girlfriend about Hicks because on the broadcast, they were really going in on his struggles and everything about how he was like, not only a below replacement level player, but he is less than like a negative OPS plus means and a negative WRC plus means he's less than 50% the value of a replacement level player in baseball, which is nuts, which it's a tough production. Like I'd like to think that I could go up and be like a negative 10 OPS plus in the major leagues,
Yeah.
And it's something that you don't expect him to carry that on, right? But my girlfriend goes, because obviously important for her, this is all sports, this is all games. She goes, is he at least a good guy? Is he at least a good person? And I was like, you know what, like, yeah, like, by all accounts, like his teammates like him. He's a kind man. He's had some weird stuff in the media, but that's because he's been frustrated with not being good and not playing baseball, which is the thing that Aaron Hicks has been like the best player in America his whole life. All the way through high school. He was like the best pitcher and the best hitter in California in high school and a top draft pick and threw the ball 105 miles an hour at one point. So you understand his frustration. I root for him. I will always root for him. And I'll really only root against his usage if he's not going to play well. But shout out to Hicks. Awesome game. But yeah, need to talk to somebody from the Yankees analytics department about this because this is back to Phil Nevin coaching third and Luis Rojas. Like it's not just them. It's not just the players. This is a whole organizational philosophy. I think that has old and I think has to be slightly skewed data. It seems like an oversimplification of controllable data that I really don't like because it's hard to measure how much human reaction time has on this kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I think that's everything I have to say about this Rays series for now. Who's your heartbeat this last week? Yankees heartbeat.
I mean, I've been talking about him all day, but it's definitely Harrison Bader. It's not even close.
Can I double up? Is
Yes,
there?
Bader
All right.
squared. He's so good. We've talked about this over text too. It's like it brings up an interesting dialogue about like what does the future dynamic of the outfield look like, and that's something that we can certainly get into in future. But Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez kind of started off as center fielders. I really wouldn't want to move away from in the organization, but if you can get Bader on a discount, I think is excellent.
Yeah, Bader came up. I mean, the stats that I'm looking at aren't even updated as of today. Do I have? Yeah, as before today, he was hitting 308 with a 132 WRC plus and one homer. So add a homer, add a triple, an RBI single in there. Bader by far the best player this week. Um, my heartbeat though, I think I joked about
Yeah.
doubling up on Bader. I'm gonna go with DJ. Um, DJ in these 6 games hit 350, slugged 400, and a bunch of clutch hits. Even in his worst day that I went to on Tuesday, he had 3 strikeouts. He still came up with an RBI single. We're missing Judge, we're missing Stanton, but DJ has been a significant run producer from the middle of this lineup, and a really important piece because Volpe, Rizzo, and Glaber have been doing a good job of getting on base. And DJ has been just getting singles and doubles behind them, keeping the line moving and preserving that momentum that has been so tough for us to get going over the past 2 weeks or so. So I think DJ gets a well-deserved heartbeat for these 2 series.
Yeah, I love seeing him in the 4-5 hole because like them actually drive in runs rather than leading off. It's very difficult for him to get any rubies. So especially with the offense being as stagnant as it has been. But he's the ultimate run producer, so I give you credit there. But I would say if there's one more honorable mention, probably Ian Hamilton, just because this guy has been locked
Yeah,
down in the bullpen, and like you can't put it past how good his first save situation was, save opportunity. If you look at his baseball savant, his analytics are excellent. All
nuts.
of his peripherals are really fucking good. They're all on the deep red, which is what you want to see. Blue is below average, red is above average. He is bright red almost everywhere. And from what we are seeing now, it looks like they might have a potential gem with him in the bullpen. And I love his perseverance and I love his attitude towards the game.
He has a sneaky .8 WAR on the season as a 1 inning reliever through 6 weeks, which is pretty impressive to accrue. Over these series, 3 games, 10 plate appearances, just gave up 1 hit, struck out 4, including his first career save. Opponents have a negative 21 OPS plus in the last 7 days. You want to extrapolate that over 2 weeks. Opponents have a -2 OPS plus, a batting average against of 115, a strikeout to walk ratio of 2.9, and only 3 hits given up in the last 2 weeks, facing 29 plate appearances.
That plays.
And yeah, check out his Savant page. Yeah.
Look at it. It's fun. It's so much fun. That's one thing I'll give Cashman for. He's good at picking up those guys. But yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have for today. We got the Oakland A's coming up. Not even going to try and preview the A's. Honestly, don't think they're worth my time. But taking that into account, the Yankees need to win. They need to win at least 2 games of this series. Shea Langoliers is a player to look out for. He's been pretty good. Otherwise, that's about it. Yankees should try and sweep. That would be huge. They have not swept a team this year. But they have this homestand, and then that's going to be followed up by 4 more with the Rays at home. So this is going to be a show me week. Yankees need to do well against both of those series because the Red Sox are on a tear right now, and the Yankees are comfortably in last place, even with a decent week. So
Yeah. Need to be dominant for once this season. So let's get it.
Anything else you want to say about the A's?
Well, we'll be able to see a few former Yankees. Jaffee series, I think, is starting game 1. And one thing that'll be
Oh,
interesting
nice.
is if we get to face Mason Miller, who's looking like a really good pitcher for them, but it looks like we're avoiding Mason in this series. But he is an electric rookie out of Oakland, and he's probably the future of their starting rotation.
I think we got him in game 3.
Oh, do we?
Oh, nope. It's Muller, not Miller. Kyle Muller.
Yeah, definitely not Miller.
Yeah, we have Sears and Nestor, Rusnicki and Schmidt, and then Muller and Brito.
Yep. So just go for the sweep then.
And then we have a Show Me series on Friday. I mean, the Yankees dropped at the Trop. It's not surprising, but it's kind of heartbreaking in the way that it happened. So 7 more games probably before you hear from us again. And while you wait for that, we'll have updates coming out on TikTok and on Instagram at Pinstripe Pulse Pod. Also follow along, especially if you're watching the game, at Pinstripe_Pulse on Twitter for some live tweets, retweeting some videos and important news to hear. And if you can, our last few episodes have been doing pretty solidly on Spotify, on YouTube. Please continue to share with any friends or family that are Yankees fans and like to listen. We all do this, taking out our own time on a Sunday evening here, our own time to edit and to promote the show and to do our homework here. So we appreciate anyone you share our words with. We do this mostly for fun, but appreciate us getting the word out and you guys helping us do that. So until then, follow us there and let's go Yankees. Peace.